This year at the Totems, we wanted to focus on several areas that matter to the industry, but more importantly, also matter to you. And one of those, which is really close to my heart, is safety. Safety for all, safety standards in India for the Indian consumer and for our industry have been going up, and they have been going up at a rapid pace. Let's discuss all of this with people who are at the heart of this massive change and revolution. I have an illustrious panel here with me. Let me start by going to the other end. Peter Yanayuba from Skoda, it's wonderful to see you. Welcome.
Nice to meet you.
Tarun Garg from Hyundai.
Thank you.
And Jyoti Malhotra, Volvo.
Thank you.
The brand that's kind of synonymous with the topic. And of course, right next to me here is Ashish Gupta from Volkswagen.
Morning.
The topic is one that none of you need a primer on because you've also driven a lot of this change. But, I did say that Volvo has the sort of cliche of being the brand associated with safety. So, Jyoti, I'll start with you. It's very easy to talk about safety in the context, or has been maybe in the past, of premium brands by saying, hey, the cars come fully loaded. They have a lot of safety equipment as standard. So what's the big deal? However, when it comes to getting consumers to understand the importance of those features, would you say that that's been one of the sort of big pillars of your strategy?
Exactly. I think putting safety features in car is one thing, but actually making customers understand that what they can deliver to you and why they are so important is equally important. So what we basically say is, first and foremost, this is the mindset of all stakeholders, whether it's a user, we as a OEM, or the government, or the authorities. The mindset has to be that nobody should get killed or get seriously injured while they're moving from point A to point B. We all need that mindset. That is from where we come from. And that being the starting point, then we start saying, how do we build on that? How can we use different approaches, whether it is about educating people or about collaborating with others. So the second pillar which comes in place is basically collaborating with others and sharing knowledge. And the 3-point seat belt, so famous, that we built and we said, okay, everybody should use it. So collaboration and sharing knowledge becomes the second part of this, so that they are not then limited to one brand. If we have some innovation, I think better to share, so that if the approach is to go to zero, then we should share the knowledge and get moving on that. And third for us is about what is called as in WHO safe system approach. So which is do whatever it takes to get the safety features built and make customers use them. And I think for that, the most important thing again is collaboration, that we collaborate all stakeholders and I think get going on that. So that's our approach.
All right. I know it's really warm, so do any of you, I think you probably want like a tissue. So can we just get, you have one? All right. So I apologize, but that part I cannot control. Okay, so moving on. Tarun, last year, I think one of the biggest headlines in the industry was when Hyundai as a brand made this massive proclamation of not just announcing a feature or not just doing something on one model, but across the portfolio. And it was, like I said, a huge sort of a change from the point of how the consumer saw it. Standard equipment, front seat, rear seat. Where did that idea first start from? I mean, the logic of it is not in dispute today, but where did the idea really, because I'll tell you, I just want to understand what the thinking was within the company.
Thank you, Sid. What you're saying is right. And you are asking where did the idea come from? I would say extra. So I remember the time when about 6-8 months before the Extra was being launched, I was presented with a sheet. Okay, 6 airbags as standard means the entry level price is going from A to B, and is it okay? Because I have spent 30 years of my life in the industry now, and it's always about the entry level price, the entry level customer. So somehow we have always felt that entry level is only about the price. I think that's a very, very big kind of, almost it became like a value. It almost became like a system. It almost became like a given. So whether it was 499, 399, 599, 699, 799, whatever, entry level price is very important. Now, and we also thought that uh, most of us that safety is something which is driven by regulation, not by choice. So I think these were the two key kind of myths which had to be broken.
Or perhaps at one time that was the case.
Yeah,
but,
of course.
You know,
Like I said,
Yeah.
of course, the industry has done so well over the past 26, 28, 30 years. So we can't say they are all wrong. But my point is, somewhere we all say that the customer is changing. Somewhere we all say that the infrastructure in India is no more the same what it used to be. Now the speeds are 80, 100, sometimes 120 kilometers. So probably, somebody has to go ahead and take a plunge. The other thing I think which is very important is, like you mentioned about luxury cars and all. So while luxury cars or even some of the other brands were bringing in those global practices, but we felt unless somebody with the substantial market share or a presence in the market takes that step, probably the change will not be felt. So I think we had to take that plunge, and we said, okay, we'll do it with Extra. Although there was a tough competition, we all know that it was a new segment emerging, but we took that plunge, and I'm so happy because although it put a lot of pressure on my pricing, but then I said we'll do it. And then when we did it, and of course it was so successful, and by the time we also knew that probably regulation may or may not come, then we said why not? If Extra we could, and Extra had so many features, dash cam and this and that, but I'm telling you, Siddharth, one feature we had a research that one feature which really stood out was 6 airbag standard. And that is how we said, okay, let's do it. And why don't we be on the offensive and really adopt it as a big thing? And we had a marketing campaign, of course. Virat was there, and we made a very nice campaign. "Che hai to safe hai," and it became like and you said safety for all. I mean, when you started this conversation today, you said safety for all, and we said hashtag safety for all. And safety is not a privilege of a few. And I think this really gave us a lot of power. And then, of course, the Verna became 5-star rating and all that. And today, I think we can very proudly say that this was such a great step to take. Yeah.
No, and I think the part that caught everybody's imagination, even on the consumer side, because we saw that in the interactions we have, is that there used to be criticism for the brand, and so there was a nice turnaround on that, and I've been a vocal critic of the market leaders, saying, hey, if they did it, then everybody else would have had to do it, and so what was holding them back? That point, in fact, Peter, is what I'd like to ask you. Tarun just said that, look, it put pressure on us, but we decided that we're going to do this. They still had that kind of economy of scale. With brands like Skoda, we've not always seen huge volume, and so the pressure of wanting to deliver some of this with a car like, say, the Slavia, how easily justifiable was it when it comes to the business case to say we have to have these features as standard?
Well, you are asking me these difficult questions because I'm not a technical guy, but I remember I was somewhere around when they have been planning the chassis for the local cars. That it was pretty difficult discussion because there is a different stiffness of the steel. There are different kind of steel. They are differently distributed around the car because the ultimate target by the passive safety is what? That any crash would come from any side will go around the car, will not come into and not damage anything. And I think this is very important. In the end, it costs something in cost, but as well in the weight of the car, no? Because the car is more robust, as well more reliable, and the chassis lasts longer. So I think we, from a nature, we don't compromise. I mean, we are a European brand, 129-year-old. I just take a look, I didn't know. Sandeep told me, look, 1972, we have done the first crash. Yeah. So you know it here in India, I didn't know. So I found out today. On a car which we have been using, and I remember in this car, Skoda 100 in 1972, my wife was driving like 7 people in the car for a road trip. I have seen people yesterday when I came from the airport, 7 people in the car. Nobody is driving like this. So it's not only about the car, it's about the people's behavior on the car, in the car. It's about how they use the car. It's about the whole ecosystem, how we behave on the street. It's about the infrastructure. And I think the regulation is important point that we are sitting here today. It seems that it's resonating really with the people, and the people want safe cars and they want to feel safe. Yeah. So as I said, passive safety number 1. And then if you build a big robust house, you can put cameras on it and alarms on it, and this is where the active part is coming, which is still a lot of software. No? So the software only works when you have predictability of the behavior on the street. If you don't have this predictability in some very crowded cities, and sorry, I'm here just 2 months, I'm still observing and looking what's going on, and I was already in some countries, but what is happening here is, yeah, you can feel a lot of emotions in the street. Yeah? So
That's one way of putting it.
exactly. You know, I really appreciate, because if somebody would be driving like we are driving here in another country, there would be a lot of crashes. Here is not so bad. So, and I'm happy about this Vision Zero, yeah, because it's really something what should drive it. The most precious thing is life and health, and every country is striving for it. And I think we are not alone in this game. We are not alone with the government. I mean, there are insurance companies who needs to contribute. In the end, it's their own money. So there are a lot of people in the ecosystem which would like to really decrease it, but it needs some time, and it needs some more than the regulation and the passions of the manufacturers. Yeah.
Oh, I agree, and I think that's the part which is also changing now, where we're seeing literally all the other stakeholders also getting up and moving. Maybe not at the same pace, but they're moving as opposed to not. All right, Ashish, time to bring you into this one. 10 years ago, or just a shade over 10 years ago, I know you were not, in this role at Volkswagen, but I remember the range of different reactions that I got, because I was involved in that first set of crash tests that happened. And, the different brands each one had its own very different reaction. But Volkswagen did then make, at the time, dual airbag standard in the Polo, which seemed like such a big deal then. And it's kind of shocking to think it was just 10 years ago. But we've come a long way since then. Now, last year, you saw the sort of, let's say, the fruit of your 22 campaign, where you started the thing with the crash tests that you had for the Taigun. And what was the shift that you perceived in consumers? Because I think Volkswagen as a brand always had a sort of a premium image, but did that particular thing sort of bring more people to you?
No, definitely. If you look at it just as a brand, safety is not something which is a choice for us. The name says it all. It's Volkswagen. So we have a responsibility towards the people that we serve. We have a responsibility towards the society we are in, and we take that pretty seriously. And I think you referred to that in 2014 itself, we made dual airbag standard in the car, which was unheard of in the Indian market. Carrying forward that legacy, and that became an expectation also from customers from the Volkswagen brand, and that again, as I said, as a responsibility we had to fulfill with our India 2.0 cars as well. So yes, it was not done from the point of view of will it get us more customers into the car or more customers into our showrooms. It was done from the point of view of that this is a responsibility of a brand which stands for people. Yeah. People coming into our showrooms as a result of this is an added bonus for us. That's how I see it. It was never actually designed to get more people into the showrooms. I think the brand itself and the product itself should have the strength to get people to buy you. But definitely what it did for the industry is something which we are very proud of, and along with Peter as well, that we were able to get a conversation into the market, which you've also been pushing, that how important safety is. We, through our campaign on GNCAP 5-star, made it a requirement for others in the industry to also highlight it as something which can, which influences buying decisions. That's, I think, something which we are very proud of, to have led that kind of movement in the industry.
Well, I remember 10 years ago asking marketeers to back this whole messaging on safety. They said it's not a top 10 consideration. Well, luckily, it's top 3. But when you talk about how the product itself has to now be sort of, all of it has to be baked in, it goes back many steps. None of that is a surprise. I don't think anything like that now, we'll not really see cars without that perhaps now as we go forward. But from your perspective, Peter, you announced recently that you will now have, another car on MQB A0iN. It's probably going to be a little more compact than what you have right now. That buyer is a different buyer again, like how Tarun made the point about the Exter. Safety becoming baked in, do you think the work done by the Slavia or the Kushaq will help that new buyer come to you also for a safer product?
Yeah, I mean, we are going to the segment which is very big, but the brand promise, as she said, is still there. I mean, we cannot change it. I mean, you cannot do now a different car and pretend it's all fine. It would be like you batch another car and you think it's all good, no? So it's much more difficult from a technical perspective in a smaller car. Any crash from any side coming to the car to put it around, because the deformation zones are smaller. But still, passive safety is number one. I mean, we still keep our brand promise. 5-star is something we have to. I cannot promise it now because it's not yet done, but it's a clear target. I mean, there is nothing we can do about it. And Ashish mentioned it very well. I mean, this is something what it's not for selling more cars. It is something what we stand for and what we always deliver because we promise it to the customer.
This misnomer about the customer not being aware, not being informed. Tarun, what's been the experience? Ever since you did this 6 airbags and rear seat belts as standard, the 3-point seat belts with the alarms, what's been the feedback? What do people come and say?
I'll tell you, the first feedback is that the stocks dealers were carrying without seat belts, they had a hell of a time to clear that stock. I mean, and they were offering all kinds of discounts and all, but nobody wanted that. So, I mean, that was the first instance of feedback. And I totally agree with my co-panelists. I think the awareness is really going up. And let me be very brutally honest. Of course, we have been talking about passive safety features. The next step was active safety features. Who would have imagined if somebody had told me 5 years back that close to 50% of my models will have ADAS? I would have, what are you talking? And here we are now democratizing ADAS in India with all kinds of, things being talked about. So my point is that a beginning has been made, direction is set, and I think all of us together, whether it is by regulation or not, I think very clearly the customers, because of the evolution, because of, like I said, some of the so-called mass market OEMs joining the bandwagon, I think the next few years, the speed of the change will be much, much faster and in line with what is actually required.
No, I agree, and I think you're right that speed is what's really encouraging. It's picking up so well. Jyoti, we have this very interesting move. I know that, and to be fair, other brands are all working on the same, but I know that when it comes to Volvo, Geely, and Polestar, there is a lot of talk about how with a feature like ADAS, which has been very well developed now in the European context, but in the context of markets like ours, where you don't have uniform lane markings, maybe you don't have lane markings in some places, you don't really have the best road infrastructure, that in certain parts still is a problem. But intuitive AI-based ADAS, which would then start to, almost counter those issues and yet give you the benefit of that feature. How much input goes from like our market to that kind of a program?
No, I think inputs are taken from all the markets, irrespective of their size, because in terms of the complexity, every market is very unique. So obviously, so for example, I can tell you, Volvo has been doing the research on all type of crashes which happen across the globe, I think since 1971, and all that data is then fed in. And I think what is AI really? AI is about collating the data and converting that into making decisions. And I think that is the strength that we have, that I think all the data is available, which can then be a very good input for the AI. So I think inputs are being taken from across. That is one. The second thing is about, I think going into future, ADAS, as we heard, I think is becoming democratized, which is really good. We are happy that I think everybody is using, because that's how you spread the message. But now, along with AI, I think it is the next technology which is now being developed is the LiDARs. So I think together with LiDAR and AI together is, I think our next cars are all going to come with that, which can further improve the reaction of a car to support the driver in all possible cases, irrespective of the lights and everything. So I think all those things are being done to take things into future. And I think countries like India, Peter was talking about, I think the way we drive cars in India is very different than any other country. And I think that is recognized, because if you can, yesterday we were discussing, if you can drive in India, you can drive anywhere. Same thing applies. If you can use any technology in India, I think it will then be a foolproof technology which can be used anywhere. So I think that's how it works. I just want to also say one more thing, since we are talking about safety and education. I would like to yesterday you said I think this is going on OTT, and we talked about education. I think all these features, especially 6 airbags and all that, is okay. I think people are still wearing seat belts in the front because regulations came many years back, and that has become like a habit now. But I think we need to urge, and I would use this platform to urge everyone that they should wear seat belts wherever they are sitting, irrespective, even if you are sitting in Uber or any other shared taxi also. Please find it's a little difficult to find sometimes a seat belt when you're sitting there, and they are also usually not clean because we don't use them. So please clean it, wear it, but do wear it. And wherever I go, I try and urge that, because I think that is how we can really make people understand it's not just the regulation. Regulations do play a role. I can also tell you one more thing. I think, in Delhi and most of the cities now, we have this cameras which people are not over speeding. Our dealers complain that is leading to less damage repair. But I think in the end, if our mission is to bring down fatalities and injuries, I think that is the right thing to do. So I'm sure AI can be used there also. I've seen in some countries that AI can actually predict whether and that the camera can actually really go into the car and see whether you're wearing seat belts or not, or you're using anything else. So I think there is a lot that can be done, and I think Indian conditions, if we can develop something, which will go a long way.
I must share something anecdotally with some of you may actually know this story, so forgive me for the repetition, but it's shocking that I can say it was 20 years ago that when I did the first episode of what used to be my show on TV. And when we were recording that day, I don't know where it came from because it was not planned, it was not scripted. When I was saying, okay, thank you for watching, definitely join us for episode 2, it just came and I said, wear your seatbelts. So even my camera person said, do you want to do that again? And I was like, no, I think it was all right. And he said, no, but that last part, what was that? And I was like, what last part? Like, I didn't think he was objecting to that. He said, who says that? And I was like, you know what, I'm going to keep it. And then it kind of became known as my tagline. But a few years ago, I had to change it. I had to say, please wear your seatbelt front or back. Because I realized that was the other issue. The reminders coming into the cars now is great. I think, a lot of times we never thought about the back seat. But people are now starting. So yeah, I agree with you. I really hope everybody watching wears their seatbelt, front or back.
One more thing I just want to add here, again talking about the crash tests and I think the NCAP safeties. Another thing which we have done very recently is a project called EVA, Equal Vehicles for All. So what was happening, all these crash tests are typically done for a European male, 6'2" and all, but not for females, not for diverse Indians, Asians, different countries. So we have now developed a software which where we use animate the sort of different conditions, different diverse things, and again that data is also now available open platform for all manufacturers to use, which is called Equal Vehicles for All. Idea is again the input going from country like India and across, that different people have different needs. A pregnant woman requires a different way a crash test and all the safety features will work. So the car should be able to take care of everyone irrespective of your nationality or size or your gender. So I think that's what we have now developed.
Yeah. No, that's actually very right. And the good part is now that a lot of the data mined from India is also going into these programs. You're right, in the past it used to be largely driven by European data or the US data. Ashish, this issue about awareness is the last one I want to touch upon with all of you, but I'll start with you. It is going to be a challenge. We're not there yet. But when you hear people say things like, and not to single anybody out, but it could also become like the thing where, a sales executive perhaps will use it as a way to push a particular sale, where people say, oh, now I've got 6 airbags, I'm all set. I'm not like, now nothing. In the past we used to make light of the fact that people had the idol on the dash and they said, this is going to save me. Now they say, 6 airbags will save me, but they won't wear their seat belts. So the part they still need to do. How do we get past that? Because in India, everybody thinks they know better.
I think, if I look back 10 years or 15 years or 20
We saw that with the Tygoon, right? There was people saying, oh, now I've got the Tygoon. I'm all set.
No, I think that's a perfect point, actually, And we get this question many times, when you go to the dealers and when you see a crash tested or a crashed car and all, and you ask them what happened here, people take safety as something, now I have 6 airbags, the 6 airbags will save me. And, many times we get complaints from customers, the crash happened, the airbag didn't open or the airbag opened too soon, that is why I got hurt. So where is the safety of this car? Now, I think the point here is that as much as it is a responsibility of regulators, as much as it is responsibility of OEMs to design safe cars, it is also the responsibility of every user to take safety seriously, because it's their life we are trying to save at the end of the day. Yeah. So if you do not value your life, nothing else can save you. So that's something which is paramount. A lot has happened, especially from your side, from all the media, who have been focusing on safety a lot. A lot has happened from manufacturers who take safety more seriously now, and as Tarun said very correctly, bringing safety features at lower price points is what was something which was missing, which I think really appreciate, and I think that may also prompt other people in the industry to go for
That's the
safer
hope.
cars at
That's the hope.
lower
Yeah.
price. Yeah. So, but on consumer awareness, again, there have been a lot of efforts made right from grassroots level, right from education campaigns on safety, right from the government, right from OEMs as well, who have been driving this awareness across consumers. And I do see that when consumers come into showrooms today, they are much more aware about what the features of the car can do for them. But getting over that mindset that once you are in a safe car, you don't need to care about anything else is something which still has a way to go.
And it's not like it's a tier 3 problem.
It's
That's the
a-
other thing. People feel like, it's out there in the hinterland, but it's not like that.
So I'll give you an example. Last week, I was traveling in Mumbai, and my driver actually, he put the seat belt behind him and buckled it up because of the traffic guys. I said, what are you doing? This is something which is for you. The car and the regulation is for saving your life, not for anybody else's. So that awareness, I think, is will take a little bit more time to come in.
And then you also have those little quick fix features that some manufacturers are doing where, I got into a cab as well at the airport in
Yeah.
Delhi the other day, and I was fiddling around trying to get that buckle out of, it was tucked into the seat, so I was trying to
Yeah.
get it out. And the driver said, "Oh no, don't worry, this dinging will stop in like, another minute and a half. So you don't have to do that." And I was like, "That's not why I'm wearing my seatbelt. Thank you very much."
Yeah.
And of course, I got that nice band across my shirt. But
But
I was
that's
like,
a
I
good
cleaned
idea,
it for the
Siddharth.
next guy.
I've been thinking about it. Maybe we need to come up with an accessory, all of us, a seat belt cover.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, they are available, and now luckily we are clamping down on things like what you used to get on Amazon, the little cheat device, to shut off the dinging. Those kind of things are nice. But your thoughts, Peter, on what we can do, maybe with your experience from other markets as well, to just get people to understand things which they maybe don't focus on, and they don't have their attention on it.
Yeah, I think there is a lot to do from media, but not from you personally, but from the government officials, because they are the most trusted entities. I mean, we all can build the best cars. In the end, it's about how the cars are being used and how the people in the car behaves. Our features will make their life easier, and they will protect them before something happen, and the passive safety will protect them if something happen. In the end of the day, we all want that nothing from what we create here is used. And it's only upon a driver, it's only upon the infrastructure, it's only upon how we all behave on the street. And if I may to bring something from the foreign countries, and I don't know how much culturally it would be allowed here to do it, there are a lot of very controversial advertising done. And I can bring a parallel with smoking. Nah? I mean, smoking in the past was a very cool thing, and finally, on every packet of the cigarettes, you can find really damaged people who are in the last stage of their life. And the same must be done for safety. So somebody needs to create these very horrible crashes and what it can do to the people. I mean, it can happen to me when I see it, and immediately I take the thing completely different. I know people who have survived serious crashes, and they will buckle all the time, and they will be all the time behaving different than they have been behaving before. It's a life change, yeah? And this life change can only happen if it happens to you, but it's the most painful exercise, or if you see that it happens to somebody else, yeah, in the family, from relatives, or even in the advertising. So this kind of learning is a hard one, but I think would help.
No, that resonates with me, because when we did the first round of crash tests and we put that on TV, the feedback from people wasn't, "Oh, that's interesting, thanks for telling us." The feedback was of horror, because they never seen that image of what happens in a crash with the dummies. And there was all sorts of questions. So you're right. Sometimes the shock is part of the awareness itself. Tarun, your views on this, because your brand, just the presence you have across the country. What is it that we can continue to do? I know you're already doing a lot.
Yeah. I think, look, frankly speaking, this is not something which you can leave others to do. And as marketers, we are all very ROI driven. And I would have my budget, and I would say, okay, and especially say big OEMs like us, the 13 brands to look at, and what is left? Nothing. So I think it has to start ab initio. Be the Better Guy campaign, I think it was started 6-7 years back, and you need to really put in money without really worrying about the direct ROI. Even Chhe Hai To Safe Hai, you need to put money. Frankly speaking, directly speaking, it would, where do I put it? Where do I put it? How do I show the ROI? But I think it is much beyond that. And as long as, and we have such a strong auto industry in India, it's now the third biggest, we have strong players, global players, I'm sure it is not so difficult. And you have to, one, like what Peter said. Second is, I think it has to be on an emotional angle. You have to bring in the child, you have to bring in the lady, you have to bring in that kind of a better guy. Everybody wants to be seen as better. It's not about you, it's also about how others see you. So I think we have to use all our marketing acumen to, as we do in our products, For product you see all kinds of creatives, all kinds of innovations. But how many innovations have you seen in this kind of area? So I think this is what is required. It has to be top driven, because the top management has to say, okay, I want this to be done. Because otherwise, if you leave it to the, to your team, they would always be, okay, sir, I have only this much money, and after product allocation, nothing is left. So I think it is, no, this is a priority. Now you can decide what you need to do. I think a very, very practical approach, but probably this is the way forward.
No, and thankfully, thanks to what we've seen from your brand as well, it's not now the panoramic sunroof, but it's ADAS that becomes the little headline in the ad, So
Absolutely.
that's a good thing, because what's really nice, and you made this point, Jyoti, so I'll come back and sort of now wrap this up with you about saying that, look, when you're telling people something, they may not necessarily understand it, but when you say something like the alphabets ADAS, a lot of people don't know what it means, but now they're starting to ask, they're starting to find out, they get onto Google and they start to search for it. The fact that we have seen the digital penetration go so sharply upwards in the last 3-4 years, and of course the last decade as well, do you think that's where our hope lies? Getting that message down to the last person?
Exactly. I think this is something, today's media, we have so much access through being digitalized. I can give you an example in some of our markets, because we don't have enough data size yet, the car park yet, but they use the stories of not really horror, but the real life stories of my Volvo saved my life. So which is done in a very sensitive way, where customers are giving us in a way testimonial as to what was my role. Okay, car played its role, but how did I respond, I behaved, which ultimately helped save my life. And then they are presented in a very sensitive manner. And I think digital media is the best for that, because as you said, people are going online, researching, and they will end up sort of going there, and I think looking at that. So something as simple as nowadays we talk that all our cars are becoming so connected, there is so much electronic. So what the cars are also doing is are also prompting you, right? Sometimes, but unfortunately in India we still have this habit of ignoring, and we'll say, okay, we'll go to the next, let me get to my destination and then react to it. If the car is telling you to park now, you need to park now. There is something which car is telling you, you need to sort of, and the stories when they are told by the customers that I followed the instruction which were given to me, and then sort of spreading that message through a digital media can make a big difference. So I think it is important that we, as I said in the very beginning, this mindset is important, and I think all of us agree on that even the consumer has to take this onus together, and I think as media, as OEMs, as government, I think everyone, all stakeholders have a role to play to, I think, continuously put this mindset, and I think emotions work. And I think using digital to put these emotions back into customers can make a very big difference. And that's what I believe will make a big difference.
No, and luckily we have a proactive minister who's also sort of, biased towards this topic, which helps. And I must tell you something that might amuse you, Tarun, that he made the point about, people don't always use it. Tucson customer, friend of mine who I hope is not going to watch this, called to say, this lane keep thing, it's very irritating. Can I shut it off? And I was like, no, you can't. I just said, you can't shut it off. You got to get used to it. You should use it. And that's maybe the point. And I can say this, being on this side of the fence, so I'll not sort of push that onto you. Media doesn't do enough. So I think I have to, on behalf of the consumer and some of us who think this is important, I would like to thank all of you, not just for being here today or talking about this, but for also doing those things, for also using marketing money to push the safety message, because media picks that up. Media will at least disseminate information from a press conference, even if that press conference is about 6 airbags. They will take that message out if they are doing a campaign and Shah Rukh Khan or somebody else stands up and says something. So more power to you. I think that message, the minute it moves out of advertising and into media, it does have a lot of power. And please keep pushing that with my fraternity, because they need the push next maybe. Thank you for being here. Thank you for braving the Goa sun. And thank you for your views. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.